Beloveds, this space is a church for Daniel, an autism-friendly virtual oasis for your spirit. I hope we find a new way to do church together, a way that prioritizes people over traditions, a way that celebrates diversity and creativity, and a way that doesn't try to make anyone smaller or quieter. It's a church for my son, Daniel. It's a church for everyone, and it's a church for you.
Friends, this is the last episode of A Church for Daniel for the year 2025. And oh boy, what a year it's been. Thank you all so much sincerely from the bottom of my heart for riding along with me on this journey. This journey of rethinking how we do church. This journey of asking the big questions and then getting the big responses. And this year of expanding the table until we're all sitting beside Jesus, breaking bread together. The Spirit is at work. Can you hear her? She's doing a new thing. Do you perceive it? Two quick updates. One is I'm going to take the month of January off from making new episodes of this podcast so that I have some time to get ahead of things and get some exciting stuff ready for all of you for February. So stay tuned because big things are coming. Second, during that month of January, when I'm taking a break and not making new podcast episodes, I'm going to be leading a Zoom book study. You might already know something about this if you've been following our social media for A Church for Daniel, but the book is called Soul Boom Workbook, and the authors are Rainn Wilson and Shabnam Mogherabi. I had the pleasure of meeting both of them when they had the book release and signing for Soul Boom Workbook in New York City back in November. I went to it with my son Daniel, and that experience was what convinced me to do a Church for Daniel book study with that book. So keep following A Church for Daniel on Facebook and Instagram for updates, but that is what you have to look forward to in January is the first attempt of this ministry to do a virtual book study with Soul Boom Workbook. So now on to the last episode, the season 1 finale, if you will, of A Church for Daniel, the Lowe's employee at the Manger. The story I want to tell you today, while we are still within the 12 days of Christmas, is about the glory of the Lord shining through inclusion. The kind of inclusion that only our children can show us, and that us grown-ups need to watch and listen so that we can learn. This is the story of my church's nativity play and Daniel's participation as a Lowe's employee. A Lowe's employee who was present at the birth of Christ. Well, if it weren't for Daniel, there wouldn't have been a Lowe's employee in the play, right? Oh, what we would have missed out on without him. But we need to rewind because this story has a backstory. So my Daniel, he loves hardware stores. In my experience, that's not unique among boys and men. Hardware stores are the toy stores that men graduate to once actual toy stores become passé. But Daniel really, really loves them, especially Lowe's and Home Depot. On a hard day, on a more anxious day, on a day when coping has been difficult, Daniel will ask me to take him to Lowe's just so that he can walk around. The time of day is not important. He's asked for trips there first thing in the morning, and he's asked for trips there very late at night because he's having trouble going to sleep and he needs to visit his happy place before bedtime. When Daniel goes to Lowe's, he has favorite aisles: flooring, power tools, cleaning products, and the very best, his very favorite of all, vacuums. Daniel reminds me that the world is full of magic in unexpected places. Because when was the last time that you got really pumped looking at vacuums? Daniel will even sit down crisscross applesauce in the middle of the aisle and he'll do yoga at the hardware store. Because why shouldn't he? Sometimes you gotta get your zen in your zen getting place. Now, Daniel doesn't always know what to do in social situations, like a lot of autistic people, but he's endlessly curious. And he adores introducing himself to the people who work at Lowe's, who are so easy to recognize because of their blue aprons and their name tags. So he asks them, "What aisle do you work in? Do you like Lowe's? Do you have a favorite Star Wars droid?" It's precious. One night a few years ago, Daniel wanted to go to Lowe's at 10 o'clock at night. The store was minutes from closing, but he needed to see his favorite vacuum before he could go to bed. As we entered the store, we ran into a Lowe's employee named Tim. Now, Tim saw two people already in their pajamas walking into Lowe's right before closing and assumed that we were there because of a very colorful emergency that just happened at our house. So Tim saw us in the parking lot, ran to us, and asked us with great urgency, "What can I help you find at our store?" And I told him, "Oh, nothing. This is my son, Daniel. He just wanted to walk around for a minute before bed. He loves hardware stores." Now, Tim's job for the evening was taking the tractors that usually sit outside the store that are on display that attract you to come inside and bring them in for the night. So he disappeared for a minute so he could finish that job. And then Tim found us again. And he surprised Daniel with his very own kid-sized Lowe's apron, work goggles, work gloves, a little hammer, and a kit to make a wooden car. Daniel and I were very touched. A lot of folks have struggled to understand Daniel's mind, but Tim didn't. He instantly got Daniel. So now Daniel's Lowe's apron is one of his most prized possessions. Fast forward to Christmas of this year. This was our second Christmas with the fine folks at the Honeoye Falls United Methodist Church. And Daniel has a mental checklist for every holiday, and Christmas cannot be complete unless there's a nativity play. Now, lucky for Daniel, our high school seniors had written one to present on Christmas Eve, and they wanted every child in the congregation to participate. My 9-year-old daughter, Lily, was going to be the angel Gabriel, or maybe Gabrielle, because she's a girl. My 6-year-old son, Alexander, was going to be a sheep. He had one line, "Ba," and he was so proud of how quickly he memorized it. The young ladies from the youth group asked Daniel what he wanted to be and gave him choices. Does he want to be a shepherd? Does he want to be a sheep, just like his little brother, or something else? Well, for Daniel, there was no question who he would be at the nativity. A Lowe's employee in his little blue apron. Now, you might think a Lowe's employee is an unusual role for a kid to portray at church on Christmas Eve, and you wouldn't be wrong. I certainly can't say that I've ever seen a Lowe's employee in a nativity play before. But Daniel showing up at the manger in his little blue apron was perfect. And he showed my jaded heart the true meaning of Christmas. First of all, just to be very clear, for anyone thinking, well, that's not biblical. Well, the nativity plays that our kids do on Christmas Eve ain't exactly biblical. We smush together Matthew's birth narrative and Luke's birth narrative and create a hybrid Franken story that just doesn't make sense, except for the only piece of it that truly matters: our love for the newborn Christ. So, for the love of the holy infant, we tolerate that Mary and Joseph live in Nazareth. Or do they live in Bethlehem? Maybe they live in both. But they live in Bethlehem under the reign of King Herod. But then they have to travel to Bethlehem from Bethlehem, or was it Nazareth? Because Emperor Quirinius is requiring a census. But wait a minute, weren't they under the reign of King Herod? Never mind. They get to Bethlehem from Bethlehem because there wasn't room in the inn in Bethlehem, even though they live in Bethlehem. So why do they need to stay at an inn? And then Jesus was born in a barn for some reason. Shepherds and angels show up that night, and apparently Mary, Joseph, the angels, the shepherds, and the animals all stick around and chill in the barn for 2 entire years, because that's how long Matthew tells us it took the Magi to get there. And at this play, we always make sure that the Magi are present there too at the birth of Christ with everybody else. And so we have to just assume that Mary, Joseph, the angels, the shepherds, the animals were chasing around toddler Jesus so that the Magi could be there too at the very end. And then they left Bethlehem, even though they lived there. But did they? Because Herod was after them. But wait a minute, I thought Quirinius was the governor. Never mind. Eventually they end up in Nazareth. So, sorry. That bothers me every year. And I've gotten another scoop more sarcastic for every year that I've been in the ministry. Also, we write 2 characters into the nativity play every year who are absolutely not in the Bible. First, the donkey that Mary rides in on from Bethlehem, where they live according to Matthew, to Bethlehem, where they go according to Luke. Because why would a pregnant lady want to walk, right? And then we write in the part of the innkeeper. We even make a little set for an inn, and we give that actor some artistic license to interpret that character in any number of ways. So how did the innkeeper feel when he told Mary and Joseph that there was no room for them in the inn? Did he angrily yell, "No vacancies," and then throw them out into the cold? Did he consult his floor plan, see a vacancy, but then consider the possibility of a woman giving birth on the new carpet, turn up his nose and say, yeah, that's going to be a no from me? Was he super apologetic? That was the way that this year's innkeeper portrayed that innkeeper. Did he say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, there's just no more room here"? Or was he judgy? Did he say, "There's no room at this inn for you"? Well, none of that conversation happened anywhere in the Bible, but it's okay. It's okay to make a few changes to tell the story that we need to hear. After all, we're starting with 2 very different stories anyway, in Matthew and Luke. Mark and John didn't find it necessary to tell a birth story about Jesus at all. They went straight to grown-up Jesus. And the point isn't a perfect, historically and biblically accurate recreation of every moment of Jesus' birth. Such a play would have been impossible to write, very long, and so boring that if we showed that at Christmas Eve this year, nobody would come back for Christmas Eve next year. That's not the point. The point is to tell a story about how all of these different kinds of people, a teen mom, her man that she hadn't wed yet, angels, livestock, astrologers, and shepherds for hire, all ended up in the same place for one night only. Because surely their paths would never all cross again. But for this night only, they all belonged in this bizarre holy space because of the one thing they all had in common: the love of the baby Jesus. And friends, that is the good news of Christmas. It's the good news, period. Everybody belongs at Jesus' side. And you belong there too. You can rewrite this story because it's not just a day in history sitting flat on a page. It's a living story in a living word. It can pop up around you like a pop-up book with real people, and you can sit and talk to them. It's what I do when I write a sermon or a podcast episode. You can change that image that you've seen on the front of countless Christmas cards. That image that all the people we think were at the manger, adoring the newborn Jesus. You can take that image and you can take out your very own box of crayons and you can draw yourself in. We can participate in, we can co-author with God by adding our own pages into the story. Have you ever done that? And if so, are you standing at the manger? Do you see yourself there? How would you have shown up that night? Now, for me, at Christmas Eve, in a room full of people that have certain expectations, when it's a church, I show up in full clergy wear. But when I close my eyes and I draw a new picture in my mind, a true one, I stand next to the manger like a mom in a struggle bun and sweatpants. And I don't go to the baby first. I go to Mary first because she just gave birth. And I know that the baby is already getting a lot of attention because that's how society works. And we tend to forget about the mom. I think about how scared and exhausted she must have been. I think about her birth trauma because I have my own. And I talk to her. I ask her, how are you? Really? What can I do to help you right now? So in my nativity play, there I am, standing next to Mary, tying her hair up for her in her very own struggle bun, finding a cushion to prop her up, and helping her find a good position to latch and nurse Jesus. Now, Daniel, as a gift of his autism, as a gift of him having no unexpressed thoughts in his mind, knows much faster than me how he shows up at the nativity. He doesn't even have to think about it. He shows up in his Lowe's apron. Now, you can make all kinds of arguments about how maybe the minimum wage earning night shift Lowe's employee is the shepherd of the 21st century. And you'd be right. But it's also deeper than that. Because in the creche, the social rules of the outside world melt away. Daniel can come inside, waving his hands and his arms, stimming with his voice, and talking about his favorite vacuum. In the creche, authenticity is the new gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They are the real gifts that you can bring to the baby Jesus. And in the creche, everyone there understands that no one gets to love the child in the manger unless they also love the child on the spectrum. O holy night, The stars were brightly shining.
A Church for Daniel is produced with love by the Reverend Natalie Bowerman.